And then mobile. Yesterday we heard Matt and the people from DFW talk about how mobility is saving productivity. Well, a hobby of mine is I'm a professional skydiver, so during the weekends I jump out of planes. And the only time I don't have my phone with me is when I'm jumping out of a plane. Right? So that's the only time I'm not using a mobile device. So mobility is everywhere, and you've got to be on that platform as well. Don't even get me started on big data, analytics, and the cloud. I was speaking to a CIO who spends $1.5 billion, $1.5 billion on data management. He's telling me we don't have a content creation problem, we have a content consumption problem. We don't know how to get our arms around big data. We don't know how to get our arms around data linking it to processes. So what happens for companies that ignore the SMAC stack? This is what happens. If you choose to ignore, you become irrelevant. Look at some of these companies. They were either born or built digital. Amazon was born digital. Even though they're a core retailer, they were born digital. That's why Borders doesn't exist anymore. You have to have the right process data linkage. I remember when Facebook would change its news feeds, and everybody on Facebook would complain about, oh, I hate Facebook, I'm going to get off Facebook. Well, guess what Facebook was doing? Facebook was actually having a page rank algorithm behind the scenes that was ranking who was most relevant for you in your status update feeds. And they were shifting around the status updates based on whose pages you were visiting and you were viewing and what content you were liking. So as a result, people started actually seeing more relevant content on their news feeds. MySpace didn't do that. MySpace just gave you a social platform. They just gave you a social collaboration platform. As a result, they're where they are, and Facebook is where it is. And finally, all of these organizations embraced code halos. What is code halos? Code halos is basically the digital sphere of information around any noun, a person, a product, an enterprise. When you see me, if you just see me, every Indian who has the same name Raj, I call my CPA and I say, hey, is my tax return done? He's like, which 7-Eleven do you own? I'm like, I was insulted. You didn't associate me with a Dunkin' Donut. Right? So if you just see me, the Raj, then you're missing out on what I like, what I prefer, my personality. There's a reason why Apple, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft are in the music business. It's not because they want to sell music. It's because there's a deep correlation between your music preferences and your personality. If you like classical music, you will appeal to more verbal communication, a more rational value proposition. If you like contemporary or pop music, you will appeal to more emotional messages. So the next time you're trying to sell something to me, don't look at what I look like or what I'm wearing. Try to figure out my playlist. And that's what Code Halo is all about. So I know many of you were not born digital. I know many of us were not built digital. But is it possible to still stay relevant, or are we doomed? Of course it is possible to stay relevant. We can rewire ourselves to be digital. We can rewire ourselves to be more transformative. We can rewire ourselves to be more social. And that's what Joe's going to talk about in a few slides. But the key 3 principles are you have to build systems that are engaging. Again, going back to my Steve Jobs quotes, he said, your platform has to be lickable. Your systems have to be truly engaging. For years in Cognizant, we had this behemoth called PeopleSoft. And anybody here use PeopleSoft? Sorry. But for years we used PeopleSoft, and nobody would use it because it wasn't engaging. It wasn't engaging. Yesterday, Daryl talked about email fatigue and email bankruptcy. Oh, yes, I know what that is. I get 300 emails a day. I don't have time to go through emails. I prefer status updates, right? And you have to be integrated. Joe's going to talk a little bit about what AIG's integration was. It means basically he emails her, who calls him, and then gets on the phone with the other person and then gets back. That was integration back in the day. That is not integration. Email is the new paper. We used to be paper-free offices. Now we need to be email-free offices, right? And finally, we have to be contextual. I'll tie off this with a last example. Apple came up with iPod, and Microsoft came up with Zune. I actually bought a Zune. Zune was far superior in technology, in the ability to deliver content, and it had better features than an iPod, because all iPod could do was play music, right? But Zune, you could have a Zune, another person could have a Zune, and you could share music right there in the room. But everybody got zoomed out. You know why? Because Apple used the data in the iPod and your preferences to deliver back recommendations and actually deliver back contextual information. All Microsoft did was give you a music player. They didn't link data back to the system or the process and make it contextual. So if we adopt these three principles, and you'll hear how AIG is rewiring themselves to be more digital, you can also be relevant in the world. So Joe?